Where do you believe racism started?
I believe racism started centuries ago when I guess they were the Englishmen came to Africa and took all the Africans to what is now America, and it started from there. Made the black people slaves, and racism never disappeared. It was always here, decades later.
How does racism make you feel?
Um, Racism, it makes me feel very uncomfortable, sad, angry sometimes, because we are all human beings. We shouldn't be fighting each other. We should actually be uniting and making our world better. But it doesn't seem like it's getting to that point.
Have you or have you not experienced racism yourself, and how does it make you feel to experience it or to see someone else experience it?
I never experienced racism, but I've seen it. I've actually heard stories about it as well, and how I feel about it. It's not a great feeling. It actually makes me angry at sometimes. I've heard stories of racism happening to other people. I've seen it. It actually happened to my mom one time when she walked into a pizzeria, and um, the lady had told her to pay her money up front, versus a white lady came in behind her and asked her could she pay her money later. She let her go. But racism to me is it's uncomfortable. It's not a good feeling. Sometimes I get angry because we are all human beings, no matter what color we are. We should come together and help each other instead of fighting each other because of the color of our skin.
Do you think racism affects our school systems, and if so, how does it do so?
I do think that racism affects our school systems because, okay, you sending your child to school, no matter what color they are. If they're white, you're teaching them to stay away from blacks, Latinos, or any other color. If they're black, then the child has to go and be bullied because their parents taught that little white kid to hate their color and so forth. So it shouldn't be like that. Like, school is for everybody's child to come together and learn. It shouldn't be segregation in the school when they're all going there for one thing.
What is one thing you would like people that look like you to know?
For all the black women out here, young or old, I would want them to know that no matter what color you are, you're beautiful inside and out. You can do everything and all things through Christ. You shouldn't be ashamed of your color. You shouldn't be disappointed in your color. You shouldn't have thoughts of not wanting to be your color, because no matter what color, black, white, light skin, blue, green, purple, no matter what color you are, we're all beautiful. We all have goals in life to accomplish. We all have a purpose to be living in this world. So let's do it. Let's make that purpose awesome.
Okay. What can we do to combat racism?
We can all stick together and put weapons away, guns away, just be peaceful in the world and love one another like God wants us to.
So, do you think our justice system is just or unjust?
I think it's unjust because with the killings that happened, 3 murders are happening with the police. I don't really think when it comes to them protecting black people, it's not right. It's not. And I think when it comes to them, you know, actually sinning for a crime, is not right either. For a white person, it's very different. For a black person, it's very different. A white person gets time, like they don't really get what they're supposed to get. But a black person, they can do crimes and get the most time. I don't think it's fair at all. I don't think it's fair for them to like sentence them like I just don't think it's fair.
How do I feel about racism? Racism and any other form of hate is bad because we were made to love everybody, love our neighbors, and not just from a Christian standpoint, but whether you believe in God or you don't believe in a God or you believe in multiple, no matter what, you shouldn't believe in hating people. Now, how do I feel about the police officer situation with African Americans? I feel like it only hits the news when police kill African Americans because people want it to be a problem. Yes, police violence is a thing, but that's not the job of a police officer to kill people. They do it to protect others. And that's really all I have to say about that. Have I ever experienced racism? Yes. I live in a place where African Americans are the majority, and I don't have a problem with that. However, that doesn't mean everybody who lives here doesn't have a problem with me. Whenever I ever did something good and was congratulated on it, there were always people to put me down saying, oh, well, she thinks she's so good because she's white. But I don't think I'm so good. I don't think I'm better than anyone else. And it makes me sad to think that other people choose to live that way and think that way. No one is better than anyone else. Not for any reason. Not based off of smarts, IQ, race, living environment, religion, orientation, gender. Nothing about one person makes them better than anyone else, because everybody has the potential to be awesome. Everybody's born awesome, and it just depends on where they go from there.
So the question was, ultimately, do you know or think that racism is good or bad? I think that racism is definitely bad. The reason I believe it's bad is because it puts people on different playing fields. We all were born. We didn't choose what color we were going to be born into, but we were just placed in that color. So saying that one person is better than another person because of skin color shouldn't necessarily define, I guess, how much socially better we are than another race. Alright, so it says, ultimately, do you know or think that racism is good or bad? Okay, I believe that racism is bad. Ultimately, because no one chooses a certain skin color to be put in, and that I don't think the amount of melanin in a person's skin can define how a person's character is going to be. So you can't generalize a group based on the characteristics of certain people. I can't say all white people are racist because of how I've seen certain cops treat minorities. And the same to vice versa. I can't do that as well. I can't say that all black people are racist because of how I've seen them treat other minorities. So at the end of the day, I believe that racism is bad. I think it's evil, and I think it comes from a place of ignorance.
What can we do to combat it, meaning racism? I believe first and foremost, education is key. Education in the home and in the schools.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the only way that racism is going to be combated. Our neighborhoods in the United States are still very segregated. As much as this country has come around from the 50s and 60s, it's still very segregated, which means the schools are still very segregated. and which also means that many kids don't get to interact with people of other races very often. So if cities and neighborhoods and towns are more of like a melting pot, then you have a first-hand knowledge of different races and different people.
I believe that. I believe the same thing. Like, I feel like a lot of racism comes from ignorance, and that comes from not knowing about other people. It comes from generalizations they're making about other people, and then they take actions based on those generalizations.
All right, so the question is, whether you are red, yellow, black, or white, how do you think we should respond to someone that is racist? Interesting question. I think sometimes it doesn't even warrant a response if it's a situation that you can avoid responding. Sometimes, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, it's not going to change people's minds. Racism isn't something you're born with, it's something you're taught. So oftentimes you're going to run into racism from adults, and at that point, you got to just look at it as excusable ignorance. They were taught that way, they were brought up that way. Sometimes it's not anything you can do about it. However, sometimes when dealing with racism, you can't always not respond. For example, the workplace. I would say deal with racism in the workplace is to remember that you are in the workplace. There's usually almost always a chain of command. Everybody has a boss. If it's your boss, you go to their boss, or whatever the case may be. But you can't fight fire with fire. It doesn't work. It just causes more problems. So the best way to deal with any type of racism is to find a better way than the way that you're being dealt with yourself. Why do you think these problems with racism are occurring more frequently lately? I think problems with racism are occurring more frequently lately because I believe that the division between colors or between races is slowly fading out. I believe that the division between colors is slowly fading out. I feel like people in general, or the younger generations in general, are more inclined to accept people of all races. And I feel like as the division of color is fading out, I feel like the people that are true to heart, downright racist, it's causing almost like I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it's not something that they want to see happen. You have people that don't want to see that happen. You have people that don't want to see change. And I feel like as the generations get older and older, and the children of races get older and older, and they see the diversity of the world, they can't shelter their children from other races forever. The world is a big melting pot at this point. Another 10 years is going to be even more mixed, and another 20 years is going to be even more mixed. Pretty soon we're all going to be mixed. There will be no one race. Everybody will be mixed. So I think that's part of the problem. And also, I feel like there's more equality in everywhere we go. I feel like there's more equality as far as sports is concerned, whereas at one point we didn't dominate some of the sports that we dominate now. For example, we broke the mold with tennis as far as Serena Williams. We broke the mold with golf with Tiger Woods. There's a lot of things and let's not forget our wonderful President Obama. So there's a lot of things that we're doing that, and a lot of doors that are opening for us now that weren't open before.
I think one of the largest issues present with this is in part the inability to have empathy towards another person one of the questions that you ask here is, how should we respond no matter what our skin color is? And the response to either the perpetrator, the one bringing the injustice, or the one having injustice happen to them, I think is empathy. I think is understanding people's journey. I think is having compassion for both the victim and the bigot. And in this climate, we have lots of shouting, lots of just the inability to have compassion, the inability to recognize that for the one who hates his or her brother because of the skin color, there's a sense of brokenness present that we need to weep for, and for the one who's had atrocities brought against them, we need to weep with them too. I think part of the issue for particularly the Church of America is a lack of empathy and compassion for the fear, the anxiety, the frustration of people's journeys. And I think ultimately, whether it be a systematic thing in government and the systems of our country, our world, or whether it be individual acts, there is just a lack of love. And of course, we understand that only but by the Spirit of God and the gospel can that even be produced in someone. But I think ultimately this becomes the issue at its core, is an inability for people to love and care for each other. It really does go back to Martin Luther King's statements of hate cannot drive out hate, only love can. And I think that's got to be a mantra that ultimately at its core that we land on when we consider how we treat each other.